corn, ball, cornball.
Yo, what's cracking, everybody? You're gonna need maximum IQ for this video, so please, don't take anything seriously. Cornball was an odd little coaster, and to many it was Indiana Beach's best roller coaster, and some even say that it was better than every other coaster in Indiana, which is quite a large claim, if I have to say so myself. I feel like most of y'all would agree with it, but you know, everyone has their opinion. But how could such a small, short little ride at a tiny amusement park gain such a huge reputation within the roller coaster world? So we're gonna be looking into that today and look at the SB&O Cornball Express. Alright, let's start with some quick stats about Cornball just to kind of get you a little bit more familiar with the ride if you aren't already. It's 55 feet tall, and the first drop will take you to 45 miles an hour, pushing you through 2,100 feet of track. It was built by Custom Coasters International, who also built the rest of the wooden coasters there. Has a steel structure which is shared with Hoosier Hurricane in some parts, and to many, the best part of this ride is the buzz bars. And I can't exaggerate this enough, this thing in the back row with a loose seatbelt was insanity. I'll get into that more later. So now that we've kind of got some basic stats out of the way, how about let's do the ride experience. After you dispatch, you're going to take a 180-degree left turn out of the station, which will take you up the 55-foot lift hill. However, the station's about 15 to 20 feet off the ground, so you're not really going to be going 55 feet up completely, but you'll be 55 feet in the air at the top of the lift. After hitting the top of the lift, you're going to go down a very strange but interesting drop. It's kind of like a mixture between a Morgan and a GCI drop. It's curved, and then it has like a weird straight section on top, so it's it's very, very strange. But if you're sitting in the back, you'll get whipped down that thing. That drop is one of the only drops that really makes me hold on unless my seatbelt's on really tight, because it's buzz bars. I don't have that much restraint there besides the seatbelt, so generally I will hold on for that drop. It was so insane. But after that drop, you're going to be going right back down towards the log flume, and if you time it correctly, you may get hit with water by that log flume. I've only ever seen it once, and I've never had it happen to me, but I have seen it, so I know it's possible. And people came back to the station, and they were not super happy about it, but you know, whatever, it's a risk you choose to when you ride. So after that potential water feature at the first drop, you're going to pop back up into another sweeping turn. It's very similar to some of the turns that was found on Mean Streak. Then after that, you're gonna go back towards the ground and come back up again, down into a smaller dip that'll take you around and almost a 180-degree left-hand turnaround, and it's gonna take you right around Tiger. But then right after that, that's where this next element is really like the big hitter of this coaster. This next element, you can really equate it to the same thing as Raven's death drop in the back row. If you have experienced Raven, you know what I'm talking about. This drop will take you out of your seat, and it'll keep you out of your seat for a good 1 to 2 seconds, and it holds you there. It's amazing, especially with the buzz bars. And the even crazier thing about this drop is it's got these big metal I-beams that act as head choppers. Most of the drop, you got these over you, and then you're diving towards the lake. This drop has got some of the craziest surroundings, and it's got some of the craziest airtime. I don't even know how else to explain it besides it's just absolute insanity. So after the arguably trademark spot on this ride, you're gonna be going right back up into Hoosier Hurricane structure, and you're gonna take a quick little left-hand turn. You're gonna get dived right back down, and there might be a point of interaction with Hurricane, but I'll get into that a little bit more later. Now the turn on this drop though, if Cornball ever reopens, watch out for this turn if you don't know about it. This turn hits. The first time I rode Cornball, I got actually kind of bruised from it. So I got hit pretty hard in that turn, but hey, good laterals. So after that really hard left-hand turn, you're going to be popping back up into another hill, which isn't really an airtime hill, but you kind of just roll over it. I mean, I've ridden a ride where I got a little airtime in the front, but if you're sitting in the back, you're really not going to get any over this hill. But then it's going to sling you into a nice long 540 degree sort of helix. It's kind of a big turn and then becomes a little bit more of a helix, but it's good. It has a lot of laterals, it holds it nice and long. It's a fun part of the ride. After that nice experience on the helix, you're gonna drop back out again. You're going to the final airtime hill. Now this little hill can be a little bit moody. You can get some pretty good airtime on it in the front and back if the ride's running fast, but if the ride's running slow, you're not really gonna get anything on it. And after that little airtime hill, you're gonna pop back up into the brake run, and that's it for you. That is the ride on Cornball Express, as explained by me. So, is that one glorious drop down to the water really the only thing holding this coaster in its high up position? So, with most coasters, it's got a little bit more going for it than just one particular thing, and that's kind of the reason why it's a little bit higher up in some people's coaster counts. So, in Cornball's case, there's definitely a lot more to this ride, but a lot of it I wouldn't even attribute to its forces it pulls on us puny humans that need roller coasters to experience some sort of mental stimulation. Something I feel like that a lot of enthusiasts may mention about Cornball is its location. It's got a very strange spot in the park, and it's kind of just shoehorned in there. Now, the way it is shoehorned in there, though, is I feel like something that attributes to its layout, causing it to have such an interesting and unique layout, and also just the fact that it's just kind of on top of everything makes it quite cool to look at and to ride. It reminds me a lot of Marcel Voss's Roller Coaster Tycoon parks if you watch his videos. So something else I found kind of cool about Cornball was the fact that it shares a lot of structure with Hurricane. And there's actually a portion of track on Hurricane and Cornball that run right next to each other. And if you dispatch Cornball at the right time, you can actually get him to race right there. So when I ran the ride, I was one of the only people that actually tried to get it to do this interaction, because it was honestly quite difficult to get right, because you had to account how full Hurricane's train was, how full Cornball's train was, and the amount of time it takes to go all the way out there and back. I mean, it's an out and back layout. So something I want to point out real quick is I didn't actually do this interaction every day I worked, mainly because on some days we were actually busy and I had to pump out trains like a normal ride-op, but on quieter days it was something I could do, and it was something to kind of keep the hype alive for the ride, and generally I could get guests a little bit more excited, and I feel like it genuinely improved some guests' days, because they would get all excited about it, and then they would be willing to wait the extra amount of time it took in order for Hoosier to dispatch, because sometimes they were slow. And no, Hurricane's crew really never knew we were doing this. After the first few times I started doing it, though, they would sometimes catch on, but they had to dispatch before we could. So it was more or less up to us to get the train loaded and out of there to get this interaction working. So if we look into the family aspect of the ride itself, it can be argued to be a family coaster. All in all, it's not super intense, but it does have quite a few like good intensity moments, I guess. But in general, it's not the most intense, and it's still a decently smooth ride. But I think one of the most important things about this coaster that can really rank it more or less as a family coaster is it has a 42-inch height limit, which is quite low. So that allows a lot of families with smaller children especially to be able to ride this coaster. And lastly, Cornball has buzz bars, and this is something you can't really find on a lot of coasters nowadays, so a lot of enthusiasts really enjoy having buzz bars on a coaster. Especially this one's really great because you can get some serious airtime because of them. So at the end of the day, no, Cornball doesn't deserve to sit on some high spot just because of that one drop, but it does due to the rest of the ride and the whole experience. It's quite an interesting and unique wooden coaster, and I can see why some people really rank it high. So in my honest opinion, I really enjoy Cornball. I love the ride. I got the opportunity to ride it so much because I worked at the park for a chunk of last summer, and it's great. Now, does it live up to the hype it gets? I would say partially. I would say it's fantastic, but I feel like it might get a little overhyped. But on the same token, there's not a ton of people overhyping it, so in theory, it's kind of underhyped. So, in that sense, yeah, I would say Cornball is definitely a little underhyped. In fact, it's just not very talked about, but when it is talked about, I feel like it is a little too hyped, if that makes any sense.